Works tours were routine in the 1960s, and waiting at the works entrance in January 1963 is a group of enthusiasts from Yorkshire who were thrilled to find number 70000 Britannia at the works yard. In addition to being the first of her class, number 70000 was also the first standard class locomotive to be built under British Railways. A wide variety of BR Standard and XLMS designs could be found throughout the works, which at its peak covered almost 140 acres. "191 Jubilees entered traffic between 1934 and 36, and 45626 was one of 131 built at Crewe, the remainder built at Glasgow by the North British Locomotive Company. One of these NBL-built locomotives was 45569 Tasmania. Arguably the most famous locomotive built at Crewe under BR ownership was 71000 Duke of Gloucester, frequently entering the works due to problems in steaming that remained unsolved until its restoration under private ownership many years later. A major feature in the works was the traverser, which by 1964 was lined with brush-type Ford diesel locomotives. Several diesel classes were maintained at Crewe Works, but a rare visitor was the prototype class EM1 Tommy, which was inexcusably scrapped at Crewe in 1970. Another design built at Crewe was the Class 52 Westerns, and over 40 of these were built at Crewe in 1962 and 63. Crewe also built 191 of the 251-strong class of 9Fs, but perhaps the finest locomotives to leave the works were the Duchesses. In 1964, Duchess of Hamilton was cosmetically restored for use as a static display at Butlin's Minehead Camp, one of the last Duchesses to pass through the works paint shops. 3 years later, another Pacific, Class A4 60026 Miles Beaver, was in the works yard not for restoration, but to act as a donor locomotive in the renovation of preserved sister A4 60007 Sir Nigel Gresley. When purchased from British Railways, 6007's driving wheels were in a poor condition and were exchanged with those of number 26. 6007 also had the distinction of holding the post-war speed record for steam traction when it reached 112 miles per hour, descending Stoke Bank on the 23rd of May 1959. We now leave the relatively clean air of the works paint shop and move to the murky atmosphere of Crewe South Depot. Situated just over a mile south of Crewe Station, the depot was next to the London Main Line and was primarily a freight depot, although Jubilees such as 45558 Manitoba were regular visitors, working into Crewe on freight duties. A variety of smaller mixed-traffic locomotive classes was allocated to Crewe South, and following closure of Crewe's GWR Gresty Lane depot in 1963, South Shed also took over servicing of ex-GWR locomotives, mainly Granges and Halls working in from Shrewsbury. Despite its role as a freight depot, following the closure of Crewe North Shed in 1965, several Britannia Pacifics were added to its fleet of freight locomotives and became a magnet for train spotters, who converged on the shed in a manner that would give a modern-day health and safety officer apoplexy. The rundown of steam accelerated rapidly in 1967, and South Shed closed in November that year. We now move to Crewe North in early 1963, and in the yard is Jubilee 45560 Prince Edward Island, along with sister Jubilee Tyrwhitt from Liverpool's Bank Hall depot. Another visiting locomotive was Carlisle Upperby's Patriot 45512 Bunsen, originally built at Crewe in 1932 to a Fowler design, but one of several rebuilt to a later Stanier specification. Externally similar but more powerful were the Royal Scots, and in April 1964 the Lancer had only a few months' service left when filmed next to A3 Pacific Prince Palatine, which had arrived with the South Yorkshireman Rail Tour. Also on shed is 70004, recently transferred from London's Willesden depot. But the undoubted stars of North Shed were the Duchesses, and filmed inside the semi-roundhouse in 1964 was a long-term Crewe North locomotive, City of Leeds.